Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some brand new data out of Australia regarding May's electric vehicle sales. And frankly, it completely flips the current narrative on its head. I mean, a lot of people, and even plenty of industry watchers, kind of thought this market was cooling down, right? The assumption was that demand had peaked, but the hard numbers we're about to unpack tell a completely different, frankly, staggering story. Okay, let's dive into this.
How do you feel when you drive past a gas station? No, seriously, if you're still driving a traditional gas car, you probably feel a familiar pang of stress. Watching the volatile costs of fuel tick up week after week, knowing a trip to the pump is imminent, it's just not a great feeling. It hits the wallet hard. But if you're an EV owner, you already know the emotional relief of just driving right past, completely avoiding that fuel stress and those unpredictable costs. And well, in May, a record number of Australians decided it was finally time to join that stress-free club.
6,443. Let that sink in for a second. That is exactly how many vehicles Tesla sold in Australia in a single month. And we aren't just talking about a good month for the company. This is the biggest month the brand has ever had in the country, period. It's a massive, record-breaking figure that completely shatters the recent assumptions that EV sales in Australia were caught in some sort of terminal decline. The data shows they are doing the exact opposite. This right here is what happens when pent-up demand finally meets available supply.
To really put that record into perspective, that figure represents a massive 358% growth compared to just the previous month, April of this year. We went straight from murmurs that the market was slowing down to an absolutely unprecedented month-over-month jump. It is an astronomical leap, and it demands that we look closer at exactly what is driving consumers to make this switch right now. Like, what shifted in the span of just 4 weeks to trigger such a massive influx of buyers?
And this brilliantly illustrates a core psychological shift. As Electric Vehicle Council CEO Julie Delvezio puts it, when fuel prices hurt, people go looking for alternatives. It's a simple but incredibly powerful point. With the global fossil fuel supply crisis really biting right now, consumers are highly motivated to avoid those painful spikes at the pump. We're talking no more trips to the servo, no more unpredictable price hikes. The underlying motivation is crystal clear. Everyday people just want a reliable, structural way out of the fuel price trap.
When you break down the actual financial reality of escaping that fuel trap, the math becomes basically impossible to ignore. By skipping the service station entirely, consumers are looking to estimated annual savings between $3,000 and $5,000. Think about that. When you're looking at your household budget, taking $3,000 to $5,000 in running costs completely out of the equation year after year, that is a massive financial advantage. It's a tangible, real-world benefit that is heavily driving this EV surge. We aren't just talking about environmental choices anymore. We're talking about fundamental household economics.
Let's look at how this disrupts the traditional hierarchy of the Australian auto market. Historically, the Ford Ranger and Toyota HiLux trade the crown, usually landing somewhere around 4,400 to 4,500 sales. The RAV4 is a perennial favorite too, but it's been running about 50% down during its mid-generation changeover. But in May, the Tesla Model Y racked up 5,605 sales all on its own. Based on these probabilities, the Model Y wasn't just the best-selling electric vehicle, it was almost certainly the best-selling car in Australia overall, and by a very wide margin of over 1,000 deliveries.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the fascinating disconnect happening right now. On one hand, you have recent media narratives literally labeling these rollouts as ugly, a failure, or claiming the brand is dead and buried. But on the other hand, the reality on the showroom floor paints a totally different picture. Consumers are undeniably flocking to these vehicles for their unbeatable value, completely defying the headlines. It just goes to show that when it comes down to making a major purchase, everyday buyers tune out the noise and vote with their wallets based on pure utility and economics.
So what is the data telling us? Why exactly are Australians flocking specifically to the new Tesla Model Y LL Bond in such record-breaking numbers? Let's transition away from the macro sales numbers for a minute and analyze the very specific features and data points that are making this particular model so irresistible to buyers right now. Because it's not just a brand halo effect. There are hard, quantifiable reasons driving this specific model's success.
When you look under the hood of the Model YL, the advantage becomes really clear. Starting from $75,000, it's currently the only 6-CTV in its class on sale in Australia right now. It features a massive 681-kilometer WLTP range powered by a surprisingly lightweight 88-kilowatt battery. The car only weighs 2,088 kilos. Plus, you get dual-motor all-wheel drive, adaptive suspension, and it does 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 5 seconds. Logically, when consumers line up these incredible specifications next to the price tag, the value proposition is absolutely undeniable.
So the crucial point is vehicle to load, or V2L. You likely already know how V2L turns a vehicle into a mobile power bank, but seeing it actually integrated here transforms the car from mere transport into a massive mobile energy source. This gives it a distinct edge in everyday utility. Whether you're running power tools on a job site, powering a campsite, or using it as a critical backup during a home blackout, this feature fundamentally redefines what a car can actually do for its owner.
But the financial advantage goes even deeper than everyday fuel savings. The Model Y LS actually undercuts basically every other three-row electric SUV in Australia by at least $20,000. Let me say that again, 20 grand. That is an absolute game changer of a margin. When you combine the specs, the range, the 6 seats, and a price that is 20 grand cheaper than its direct market competitors, it proves exactly why trend-following consumers are completely ignoring negative press. The raw financial value is just way too significant to pass up.
Let's move to and see how this builds across the rest of the market. The Tesla Model 3 still managed a solid 828 deliveries, showing us that while SUVs are dominant, sedans still have a very active buyer base. And we're seeing strong jumps from competitors like the Polestar 4, which was up 52% to 202 sales, while the Polestar 2 added another 48. When you combine the sales of both Tesla and Polestar for May, you get a combined all-time record of 6,681 vehicles. The momentum is clearly broader than just one single model.
And that brings us to an incredibly telling number, 56%. Despite all those murmurs earlier in the year that EV momentum was completely dead and buried in the country, Tesla has actually sold 56% more cars year-to-date than they did at this exact point last year. The reality of the data is absolutely unequivocal. They are back, they are breaking records, and the consumer appetite is larger than ever. This isn't just a brief spike, guys. It's an accelerating trend line.
But the story doesn't end in the driveway. A massive part of this movement is the realization that these vehicles fit into a wider, money-saving home energy ecosystem. It's a pretty simple 3-step process. Install home solar panels, add a home battery system, and then plug in your electric vehicle. By combining these 3 steps, many consumers are finding they can completely eliminate their power bills, powering their homes and charging their cars for absolutely nothing. The EV surge is deeply linked to achieving this $0 ecosystem. The car becomes a functioning asset in your home's energy grid, not just a liability parked out in your garage.
Which leads us to a final, really provocative thought. With EVs offering record-breaking value, completely outcompeting traditional market favorites, and opening the door to the potential for $0 home energy bills, are traditional vehicles and their expensive fuel costs about to become obsolete? Consider the staggering numbers we've explored today, and think about how this massive shift is impacting the future of the auto industry right before our eyes. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and keep exploring the data.